Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Future of Everything Live. This show is being video and audio recorded. Please take a minute to silence all cell phones. And now, please welcome bioengineering professor and the host of tonight's show, Russ Altman.
Thank you. Thank you. Testing 1, 2, 3. Sounds like you can hear me. Welcome to the Future of Everything. I am Russ Altman. Few little notes before we get started. We're very excited about two great guests. We're really excited to have you all here today. You know, we usually do this in a dark studio cave, and so every now and then we come out of our cave and we do this with you, and it's super fun. So thank you for coming. I know that it's, especially on a rainy day, this is an amazing turnout. So I just want to, you heard the voice of God say that this is being taped both on audio and I believe video. And it will be aired as a normal show through the magic and of editing. So a couple of things. This is a radio show on Sirius XM, channel 121. So if you have a new car and you still have your Sirius XM, or if you're a Sirius XM subscriber, I'll see you Saturday mornings on the 121 channel. We also make it available on iTunes as a podcast. With several other shows that are part of the growing Stanford selection of radio content. And then stanfordradio.stanford.edu. Stanford Radio, all one word, .stanford.edu, also has some sound files that you can listen to it. So thank you for your support previously, or thank you for your support going forward. I want to take a moment just to thank my producer, Brian Pelletier, who makes me sound good by editing out all my bad things. And I also want to thank Michael Friedman and Catherine McMillan, who helped get the production under order. And there are many others as well. So I think, to tell you, we're going to have two guests. In one guest, we're going to have a first few minutes of conversation and then a short break, not enough to get out. Sorry. And then we're going to finish that conversation, have another short break. We'll bring on the second guest, have one continuous 23-minute conversation, and then we'll stop. We'll have a very brief break while you come to these mics, where we'll have 10 to 15 or so minutes of Q&A. So do think about if you have questions. We like short questions so that we can get a lot of questions in. So I think that's everything that I had to say, and I want to, again, thank you, and I think we're going to start the show now. One other thing I have to say, which is that I do use notes. So I can't memorize everything, so I want to apologize in advance. You will see me referring to notes as I give my introductions and stuff, and it's part of what I need to do, so I apologize if that's disappointing to you. Having said that, I will ask my producer if we're ready to go. Today on The Future of Everything, the future of hiring, finding a job. So looking for a new job is exciting, but petrifying. And some people do it a lot, and some people do it every now and then. It's exciting because you can have new opportunities. You meet new people, personal growth, a change of environment, often a good thing. You can learn new skills. It's also petrifying. It's petrifying because you might not find a good job or a good match. You might have to move to get to the kind of job that you want, physically move, change where you live. You're worried about the match of the culture of the company to your value system, what you want to do. You're worried about your match to the other employees. How is that going to go? Am I going to be compatible with them? Are they going to be friends or frenemies or foes? And is the mission of the company consistent with the things that I value? Are they doing more good than evil? And it's really the same for the employer, right? The employer is trying to find just the right people to bring together for this common mission, rowing in the same direction, singing from the same choir book, all of those sayings. They need to find talent and aptitude. They need to find communication skills, commitment to the mission of the company. They want diversity. They want people bringing in new perspectives. They want to make sure they can pay them and afford their salary, that they're competitive in their benefits and things like that, and they want them to stay a while once they're trained and functional. So the way that people find jobs and the way that people post jobs has changed in many of our lives, especially those of us who are a little older, a lot. So in the olden days, we had newspaper ads. magazine ads. There might be radio or television, call us up, come to visit us, we're hiring. And then we had things like Craigslist. We had Monster.com. We have Monster.com. We have LinkedIn as a way. My children were told that their LinkedIn resume was at least as important as their printed resume when they were in college preparing for the job market. Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. I don't know if you find jobs on Instagram. We will find out if WhatsApp or Instagram gets you jobs. Then there's headhunters, and then personal references. I work at this company. You might enjoy working at this company too. A benefit of the internet and all of these organized sites is that we can study they generate data that we can study. How good have the matches been? Who's working? Who's not working? How can we make this very sometimes awkward matchmaking process as good as possible? And what are the policies that we should implement at our company to have the best, most effective hiring practices and make this whole process more exciting and less petrifying? With that, I'd like to invite Adina Sterling up to the stage. Thank you, Adina.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Russ.
Adina Sterling is a professor of organizational behavior at the Graduate School of Business here at Stanford University. She studies labor markets, social networks, and hiring practices. Adina.
Hi.
Hi. Given all the new ways that we have to identify large pools of candidates, are companies better at choosing and recruiting employees than they were 20 years ago? Or has this not gotten better?
That's a complicated question.
Perfect.
So in some ways, companies have gotten better because they've become more efficient. They have gotten better at targeting particular candidates that would be overall a better fit in the organization. But on the other hand, they also have to deal with the large influx of candidates' applications that they're getting. And so it's, I would say, as possible today as it was 20 years ago that they would overlook a diamond in the rough, someone that doesn't appear to have the skill sets on the surface that they want, but would be fantastic for the organization.
Yeah, so going back to this and the changes that have occurred, I gave this quick little summary based on not really being an expert. Has there been a history of hiring, and do HR people think about it very differently, and have the policies at the companies evolved? And what do they do about this fire hose of applicants in terms of process?
Yeah. So the history that you gave, I think, is a really important history. So 20 years ago, 30 years ago, in 1994, Monster.com started, and that revolutionized the way that hiring got done. Companies up to that point might have 20 applicants for a job. Once Monster came on the scene, they could get 200 applicants in a number of minutes. And so overall, what they've become is more technically savvy in how they go through resumes. Right now, around 3/4 of all resumes and all applications will be touched by some form of AI. They will be screened out early in the process. And so that's great. That's one way that some of the efficiencies have come about. But when you've got 10x the number of applications overall, you're still getting a lot of applications.
So if AI is one of the first filters, that means if I have a touching human story about why I might be a very compelling candidate that's totally out of the blue,
right.
Served in the military and was a very an inspiring platoon leader and had showed leadership skills that are ridiculous,
yes.
That might not make it through an AI filter.
That's right. You might not have the buzzwords as a part of that story that would allow your resume to get the attention of a hiring manager.
So does that lead to systematic problems and systematic misses, so to speak, I would guess it does, on the hiring front? And do the people who kind of make these sins of omission, do they ever feel it or know about it? Or is it kind of a blind mistake that they're never really aware of because they never see the application?
Yeah, so that's another good question. It has to do with kind of type 1 or type 2 errors. And frankly, they often don't know when there's a missed opportunity, somebody that would be just absolutely stellar in the company, but perhaps because they come from a school that isn't one of the typical colleges or universities that they recruit from, and particularly maybe they don't have a social connection in the organization that allows them to get the attention in the hiring process that they need, they could certainly be overlooked.
So I know that you actually have studied this phenomenon of the network effects of applying for jobs, and whether the kind of network that an employee has and whether that helps or hurts them enter a new organization. And of course, on the positive side, it would be like, well, if you have a good employee and they know another person who they think's good, that sounds like a good thing. But you found that there are also some downsides to this. So tell me about the balance between the network that the employee comes in with or lives in and how that might impact the hiring processes.
Right. So social networks in hiring are everywhere. And it's hard to get a good estimate of just how pervasive they are. Low estimates are around 50% of jobs will be found through social networks. But on the higher end of things, some people have estimated that 75 to 80% of jobs are found through social networks.
So if I can just ask, when you say through a social network, is that the informal network of friends, or does that include things like LinkedIn and these kind of reifications of your network?
Yeah, so it's both. Okay. It's both. So it's friends, family, former coworkers, alums of a school. That's part of your social network, and it's the reification of that social network on LinkedIn, if you will.
Yes.
And what a lot of companies do now is have the API to be able to say, if you give us access to your LinkedIn profile, we love that because we want to know who you know in our company. And guess what? If you don't know someone in the company, you're kind of out of luck. You don't raise to the top of the pile, because HR managers love when you have a referral into the organization.
Now, is this, without question, always a benefit to the company, or is there a downside to this network effect of hiring?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and it's what a lot of my research is on. And one of the things that we know is that there are benefits. People who are hired through social networks, through friends, family, coworkers, previous coworkers, they are more likely to stay in organizations. Okay, so turnover tends to be less. There is mixed evidence that their performance in the organization is higher. In fact, in some of my work, I'm finding that that's not really the case. And then on the flip side, not only could it not be kind of better, I've been working on some projects to suggest that, in fact, performance could be lower if you're hired through a social network for some of the reasons that we might think. So if I know you and I've applied for a job and you're sitting in a company like Facebook, you might say, oh, Adina's really great, just hire her on the spot. And lo and behold, that hiring process then gets truncated.
Right, and it circumvents the normal quality checks.
That's right.
Huh. And so I think you've also looked at, so sometimes people apply for jobs to kind of test the waters or even get competing offers that they can use as leverage in their other negotiations.
That's right.
Those, I think you've connected that to network social effects as well.
That's right. So one of the things that we can think about on the positive side of things when it comes to social networks and hiring is that when an applicant knows an employee in the organization, they can act non-rationally. And what do I mean by that? I mean that in one study of MBA and law students, I found that even though MBA students and law students are highly strategic, very smart, and know that they will benefit from having multiple offers from companies, that they're willing to give those offers up early if they have a friend in the organization that's offered them a job that they don't intend to keep. In other words, I'm willing to kind of give up my negotiating power with another company if I have a friend in an organization.
And is that just based on kind of the very human, I don't want to kind of cause trouble for my friend by acting a little bit more jerky?
My friend will take a reputational hit because likely they've endorsed me, and so I don't want to prohibit that company that my friend works for from moving on to other candidates.
Now, of course, when we think about the use of AI, and as this has been in the news a lot, there's the possibility of these AI algorithms usually implicitly having biases against underrepresented groups,
yes.
women, minorities, any group, because they typically are trained on data. Most of these AI algorithms, you give them a set of successful hires or something
right.
like that, and you say, please find people like that. And if there are correlations in that data that you may not want to perpetuate, they could create unfair situations. Right. Has this come up in the work, and are we seeing this happening in these AI programs?
Yeah. So the way that I would describe it is that that I've been pleasantly surprised and encouraged that a lot of companies, I think, are moving with a lot of caution in this area. They looked at what happened with Amazon, where over time they discovered, lo and behold, with the AI and machine learning processes that they were using, that they were screening out underrepresented minorities, women, and that they were hiring all white guys. And they said, okay, so we're not going to continue with that algorithm anymore. And so what I think is that a lot of companies, at least in interviews with me, are telling me that they are not willing right now, because they know that bad data in means bad data out and bad processes out. They're not willing to kind of let the machines go on their own. That at a minimum, they understand that a supervised machine learning process is necessary, and that they've got to move with a lot of caution when it comes to AI and machine learning for this very reason.
So that's good to hear, although when I think about the very first thing you said, which is that the first screen is always some sort of AI, you could imagine that it's actually down in the trenches, in the weeds, it might be a little complicated. And it might be difficult for them to fully implement totally unbiased screening if they're depending on it to get from 200 to 20.
Yes.
And I'm sure at some point those discussions might become awkward with you when you push them on this. I mean, I don't know. I haven't been there.
Either they will frequently lie, or no, I don't want to say that. Here's what I would say. I think that that there's been a lot of attention to these issues, and we've had great books like Cathy O'Neill's Weapons of Math Destruction books and things like that. That there's a good deal of kind of knowledge and caution in the industry about these things, and so I'm hopeful that the implementation, as we continue to learn more, will be done with a lot of care.
So let me just ask, is there a way that some of these AI technologies might be good? Is there a way that we can turn them around and have them be a source of diversity and open-minded hiring, perhaps even more than they would naturally do if it was an entirely human effort?
So one of the real areas of growth in AI is with sourcing. And a number of recruitment tech companies have come on the scene in the last couple of years that have explicitly focused on targeting underrepresented minorities, women, and candidates that companies wouldn't otherwise have exposure to. And they do that through sophisticated targeting methods that have to do with understanding, frankly, the massive amounts of data that people are providing on the internet about their lives. And so they, the algorithms know
these people out.
With a fair amount of accuracy, race, gender, sexuality, and some other aspects.
This is The Future of Everything. I'm Russ Altman. I'm speaking, and we will have more with Adina Sterling about hiring, bias, AI, next on SiriusXM Insight 121. Thank you. End of section. So we're going to go to next segment. Okay. Thank you for your patience. We're just going to go right into the second segment. I want to check my little list of things to ask you.
Absolutely.
Good. I'm ready, Brian. Welcome back to The Future of Everything. I'm Russ Altman. I'm speaking with Adina Sterling about hiring, AI, bias, and fairness. So in the last segment, we talked a little bit about these AI algorithms and how they could be bad, they could be good. Another thing that you've studied is gender pay gaps.
Yes.
And that's on a lot of people's mind, and probably at least half the people in this audience. So let me ask you, what have we learned about gender pay gap, and is things getting better or worse?
So one of the things that we know is that it's real. And even in very sophisticated models where we have lots of information about people's test scores, the schools they went to, other aspects of their human capital, we still see, based on all of those observables, that women on average are paid less than men. Now, the statistic that tends to get thrown out there about an 80%, women making 80% of what men make, does not take into account the fact that men and women do different jobs. By the time you look within a job, that wage gap significantly narrows, but it is still there. And it varies, but anywhere from 5 to 10%.
So still enough to be concerned.
Still enough to be concerned. That's right.
So are there strategies, because a lot of this has to do with the initial salary, right? When you start,
Yes.
And then you get on a curve, and that curve is just very hard to move.
That's
depending.
right.
So are there strategies that you've studied or that others have studied to continue to narrow that gap, and what do we need to do?
Yeah. So your question, I think, is spot on in the sense that when women start out making less than men, then a cumulative disadvantage process gets put into place. And so one of the things that can happen from the start is that employers get better information about people. In other words, let me not rely on my stereotypes or beliefs about what a leader in a Fortune 500 company ought to look like. Let me bring people into the organization, spend time looking at how they perform on a team, how they lead within the organization, and then let me make salary assessments. And that's one of the things I did in a study where we had on average, 8 to 10% gender wage gap, but after an employer brought people into the organization, got to see what they were really good at, that gender wage gap completely reversed.
So this is I saw some of your papers. This is the literature on tryouts.
That's
or
right.
Maybe an internship, or maybe that's not the right word. So how do you logistically do that, though? So how do you, as an employer, let's say you're an employer, you have the best of intentions,
Yeah.
you read all of your scholarly work, and you say, yes, I need to bring these people in and give them a test. Is there ways to set that up to make it practicable in terms of, you would need a very high rate of good workers, because if you're constantly saying, oh, this is not a good one, this is not a good one, that could end very quickly. So how do you actually implement that?
How do you do it at scale? Well, I think that we're not quite there from a technology standpoint, but we're getting close. So you can imagine that instead of bringing people in to an organization for 3 months, you instead have them do some sort of simulation or VR, where they can spend 2 or 3 days operating as they would within the organization, as a shortcut, if you will, so that you can see them working in real time, versus trying to make an assessment about how good they would be based on observable characteristics.
And so is there emerging evidence that even those virtual reality or very short experiences can still give enough information to the employer to make that better decision? Because that would be great. That means you can really compress it to something that's very doable.
Yes. So the answer is yes and. So yes, there's evidence that it helps, as long as employers don't shoot themselves in the foot. And what I mean by that is frequently they will couple those tryout experiences with more traditional hiring practices and then still fall into some of the same sins, if you will, where they're expecting, say, people from kind of a certain class to behave like another class, and when you are poor, underprivileged, et cetera, you're not walking into a room commanding attention in quite the same ways. And so when employers are still looking for that, that means socioeconomic background can still matter in ways that perhaps it ought not.
This is The Future of Everything. I'm Russ Altman. I'm speaking with Adina Sterling about hiring, fairness, bias. And on this issue, so I wanted to ask about, what did I want to ask? About whether there's a tipping point. So, well, let me step back. You mentioned that at the end of your last comment that there might be expectations about the person coming into the job. And I think if I remember looking at your resume, you have written about the star person who comes in where they hear this guy is good or this woman is good, and that sets a whole stage for success or failure that's very different from somebody who doesn't come in with that expectation. So what in the world can people do about that kind of very human, oh, I hear this one is a real great one, or I don't know about this one? How do we manage that?
Yeah.
Is that manageable?
Yeah. Well, some of it, I think, starts with awareness. So the very fact that that you're even asking that question, I'll tell you that it's not something that crosses most HR managers' minds and managers' minds. And so we do know that that there's this expectation when you're good that you're gonna get better and you're gonna get the lion's share of the resources. One of the things you can do is place the people without, say, as much attention early on in the organization with a really good supervisor, somebody that knows how to mentor and train them and bring out the best in them, and maybe that manager is high status in the organization, and so that then helps shine a light on that employee.
So you just kind of have to be aware of it and proactively try to be fair about expectations. That's right. And so to end up, I wanted to talk about this new gig economy, right? The 1099 economy. Is that going to be a source of more fairness because we're contractors, like an Uber driver? I don't believe the Uber algorithm takes any consideration of whether the driver is a man or a woman. Is this a great leveler or not?
It depends. I think it depends. There's been a number of studies done on platforms like Airbnb, of course, that show that we're far from leveling the playing field on those sorts of platforms when people are interacting in kind of these more private or intimate spaces, that gender stereotypes, racial stereotypes, stereotypes about class still come to the forefront, and that there's still a lot of discrimination on those platforms. And so I think, again, it goes back to a careful design of the technology, but then coupling that with a set of policies and programs that sometimes say we need to educate our consumers and our content providers, or whatever the case might be, on ways to be fair.
So unfortunately, the same biases that we can see in normal hiring practices can just play themselves out in the gig economy, where you're just picking a contractor for a one-off relationship. But even in that one decision, you can bring in a whole world of perhaps non-optimal decision-making technologies.
That's right.
Well, thank you for listening to The Future of Everything. I'm Russ Altman. Coming up, we'll talk with former Facebook executive Alex Stamos on SiriusXM Insight 121. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.